What's up, everyone? Welcome to my first ever review of WWE Monday Night Raw, and I hope you all will enjoy it as much as I enjoy recording it. So, this is the first episode of Monday Night Raw with the crowds back, after over a year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I can tell that the crowd was really enthusiastic to be back. However, there were some questionable booking decisions that WWE made on this episode of Raw that I want to, break down and give my 2 cents on. But I'm going to go down the card first and just, talk about the entire episode and then give my thoughts along the way. So we first open Raw with 16-time world champion, obviously a future Hall of Famer, John Cena, who made his return the previous night at Money in the Bank, back on Sunday, I should say. And he basically, expresses his gratitude for being back, and he calls out Roman Reigns. And in his words, he calls Roman Reigns an asshole, which pretty much obviously sets up a future feud between the two. And I really think this is a surefire match for SummerSlam. So that's at least one match we have in the books for SummerSlam. And what's incredible about this in particular is that these two actually had a feud a few short years ago. I think it was like 2015, 2016, around the time where the crowd was not into Roman at all because Roman was being pushed as the face of the company. But the fans didn't necessarily want that because they thought that it was a little too cookie cutter, so to speak. And then you have John Cena, who has been the face of the company for over a decade, and he got nuclear gold way heat because he was seen as like the golden boy or the face of the company. But people grew tired of his like superhero-ish type character. And I was one of those fans. I was actually a John Cena fan when I first started watching wrestling, and then after a while I kind of tuned out from him as well due to his character. But going back to their feud, Roman was feuding with Cena at a time where he was still finding his stride as a singles competitor. And he was off the cuffs of the breakup from the Shield back in 2014. 2015-ish, they were pushing him a little too soon, to become like that top guy. And it really showed during his feud with Cena. Especially, I remember that intense promo that Cena cut on Roman. And in a way, he was kind of breaking the fourth wall. And in a way, Roman felt like he was holding back a bit because he couldn't really say what he wants to say. And this was 2015-ish, I believe. Yeah, 2015. Fast forward to 2021, a lot of things have changed. Fans have become a little more receptive to Roman, and I think it really put the stamp of approval on it when he debuted his tribal chief character back in last August. So now we have John Cena coming back in his signature hustle, loyalty, respect, never give up character. And then you have Roman Reigns, who is like this very domineering, vicious, and manipulative heel as the tribal chief. So, two completely different men at this point. And Roman, he's in a better spot than ever. And you could tell that he's really doing his job in the short period of time that the crowds have been back. Like, he's really taking the ball and running with it. So I'm really excited to see how Roman will react, on the mic against Cena now that he's in his heel character. He's a little more smug and way more arrogant. And of course, I want to look forward to their match at SummerSlam and just really see how they interact in the ring, being that Roman's like this very vicious heel now. Obviously, things are gonna change and it's gonna look different. So after Cena cuts his promo, out comes Matt Riddle for no reason, only to have a bro off or a bro duet, so to speak, however you want to name it or go about it. They did their thing. And, it was a cool, sweet, funny moment. Didn't know the purpose behind it, but, it made me giggle a little bit because, John Cena, he has a great sense of humor too. He's pretty funny. Some of his promos where he tried to crack jokes, they were sometimes cringy, but, in this case, it was really funny. So I enjoyed that. So, and also another thing to point out about Cena's promo against Roman, I think he was trying to break the fourth wall a little bit, but not necessarily, because he was referring to Roman as like being overhyped and overexposed and those sorts of things. And these are things that fans tend to say about Roman, all the time. So I think it was pretty clever for him to add that little dig in there to Roman. And I think it's only going to fire Roman up. So I also wanted to point that out. So we end that segment and we move on to the first match of the night, which is Riddle and the Viking Raiders versus John Morrison, AJ Styles, and Amos. Completely random, but it does add on to the separate feuds that are going on, with Riddle and John Morrison, and then the Viking Raiders and AJ Styles and Amos. So Riddle and the Viking Raiders, they pick up the pinfall after some miscommunication between Amos and John Morrison. Apparently, the Miz was at ringside and he has like this spray gun and whatnot, and it attributes to like John Morrison's moist wanted character, and I hate that word moist, by the way. So it was cringy every time they said it on commentary, and especially when the ring attire said it, when the ring announcer said it. Ugh. And apparently almost thought Miz had sprayed water on him, but it was actually Riddle. So there was like a little miscommunication there. Nonetheless, Riddle and the Viking Raiders, they pick up the win. And then it was announced that next week, the Viking Raiders will again get a Raw Tag Team title shot against Styles and Amos. Repetitive booking, but, I guess maybe the title will change hands and put it on an actual tag team. Because Styles and Amos, they're not really a team. They were just put together. Like, Amos was AJ's bodyguard. And then, then they won the straps from the New Day at WrestleMania, and it just kind of stuck. But the Viking Raiders, they've been a team for, quite a few years, in various promotions around the world. So it'll only make sense if they win the titles, this go round. Next up, we have a Symphony of Destruction match. Another unusual gimmick match between Jackson Ryker and Elias. Obviously this was made for, Elias's persona as being like a guitarist and musician and, those sorts of things. So I get that. And to be honest, I never really understood the purpose of this feud, because if my mind doesn't fail me, Jackson and Elias were once partners, right? So maybe I missed like the point of their split, but the match was good and it had some decent spots, but it wasn't something that was like memorable or for me to like get invested in either one of them, really. And I also appreciate the fact that they used a variety of instruments. You have like the cello spot that I think Elias did on Jackson. That was really cool. And then, standing on a piano and like going back and forth. And then of course like the ending of the match where Jackson does a suplex from the second row through like two tables that were set up near ringside. And then, he gets the pin. So overall, I appreciate how they were able to use, the instruments around them. But is it something that I'm truly invested in? Absolutely not. Speaking of other things I'm not really truly invested in anymore, we have another, repetitive booking match with Natalya and Tamina versus Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. So Natalya and Tamina won the titles from Shayna and Nia on the episode of SmackDown. In all honesty, they probably should have won the titles at Mania, but I can understand why they didn't necessarily do that. But nonetheless, they have another match, and the spots were a little choppy and, a little bit, off in terms of chemistry for the most part, but they were able to, get the story across. And then Tamina, hits the super kick, Shayna Baszler, and they get the pin. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. It's time to split Shayna and Nia up. I'm going to say that again. It's time to split Shayna and Nia up. They are both singles competitors, and they should be, in the running for the Raw Women's Championship, which I'm also going to talk about later on in the review. It's time to split them up. And I thought that was going to happen when they had that moment in the ring, and, Shayna was like confronting like Nia and Reginald. And then if you listen closely, the crowd was actually chanting for Shayna, which, me being a little bit biased and a longtime Shayna fan, I enjoyed it. But, it ends up with Nia headbutting Reginald, and then Shayna and Nia leave Reginald hanging. But it's time to wrap it up. It's time to break Shayna and Nia up. It's time to move on. And then for whatever reason, several wrestlers run down to the ring. I think it was like R-Truth, Akira Tozawa, and two other wrestlers that I couldn't get a glimpse of. They were like fighting over the 24/7 championship. Reginald was still in the ring, and he hits like a running senton to Akira Tozawa, and he wins the 24/7 title. What was the point of that? I do not know, but maybe this can keep Reginald occupied, and then, let Shayna and Nia split up as they should. Okay. So now we move on to Sheamus versus Humberto Carrillo. And they have been having a bit of a feud for the United States title. And I'm all for wrestlers, getting opportunities instead of like pushing the same wrestlers every single week. But this is like another feud that I can't really get entirely invested into, mainly because of like the chemistry between Sheamus and Humberto, if that makes sense. Of course, Sheamus is like the powerhouse, and Humberto is the high flyer, awesome high flyer, by the way. He's amazing at what he does. So they're able to counteract each other in ring. But in terms of the whole package, like the storyline, like the promo work, and it is really hard for me to get into. But the two actually had a decent match. And in this match, Carrillo was battling to get a shot at Sheamus' title. But ultimately, Sheamus picks up the win. And so that probably means that Carrillo probably won't get a shot. That was like a little unclear. So Carrillo, he loses. So does that mean he no longer gets a shot as long as Sheamus is champion? Or is he's going to find his way back into a title match? That was like something that was a little unclear to me. But nonetheless, Sheamus, he gets the pin. Then we go to the next segment, which I think this is actually pretty cool. So Drew McIntyre is now entering into a feud with Jinder Mahal. And Jinder Mahal was accompanied by Veer and Shanky. He was in a ring with a promo, and Jinder talks about his actions of attacking Drew McIntyre during the Money in the Bank ladder match, and ultimately costing him the match because from the way I seen it, it looks like Drew was like on the cusp of becoming Mr. Money in the Bank. And Jinder and Veer and Shanky, who are his henchmen, they attack him and like carry him to the back, I believe. Yeah. So midway through the promo, Drew McIntyre comes out of nowhere and attacks, Jinder and his henchmen And one of his henchmen, Shanky, was like on the receiving end of a bunch of chair shots. At the point, it got a little cringy. I was like, how many chair shots he's gonna give him? And I think the crowd was like counting them out, and it was at least 20 chair shots. I think it was probably a little bit more, but yeah. So this is another feud that is set up, and I think this is pretty cool because, as many fans know, Drew and Jinder were 2/3 of 3MB. The other member was Heath Slater, but he left the company last year. And now we're seeing, Jinder back in his vicious heel persona that he had a couple years ago, and people were just like raging mad when he won the WWE title, and people flipped. But I think his home nation of India, they like celebrated that he won the title, which I thought was pretty interesting. But now he's reverted back to his vicious heel persona, and this also proposes like a different challenge for Drew. And as I said in my Money in the Bank prediction, vlog, I feel like it is time for Drew to back away from like the title picture just for a little bit, and let Bobby continue to reign and like give other potential contenders a shot, which I'm going to talk about later on in this vlog. So this is a way to go about it, and hopefully this is not just like a brief feud and then they push it to the side. Maybe this can potentially be something that can bring more traction to Drew, but also a little more attention to Jinder as well. So that's kind of like my early predictions for this feud. And then next, I'm a little iffy on this because these are two of my favorite wrestlers in this match. So the next one is Jeff Hardy versus Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross is the current NXT champion, and it's pretty obvious they're going to try to put him on the main roster, but this is not the way to go. Now, first off, we got to talk about the entrance. Karrion did not go out with Scarlett. It wasn't like his NXT entrance. So it was a little more generic, so to speak. So I was like, man, they fucked up already. And then out comes Jeff Hardy, one of my biggest artistic inspirations, one of my favorite wrestlers, and or North Carolina native, may I add. He comes out to his also iconic No More Words theme song. And when I tell you I flipped when he came out to that theme song. But okay, back to the match. So this could have been a potentially great match, but it was barely 2 minutes long. It was like a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. This is where I get iffy. Jeff Hardy got the pin, which I'm happy about that because Jeff Hardy has not really been used to his full potential over the past year. So I'm just going to be 100% honest. But then they fucking screwed up Karrion Kross's main roster debut. Like, how do you do that? So I'm hoping this will set up a feud between the two and maybe things would get better. And after the interview portion of Karrion, he's like really pissed off. He claims that Jeff Hardy made the biggest mistake of his life. This may be a sign of things to come for both of them. So potentially that could be a summer feud that we can get. But other than that, I was a little disappointed. Mainly because, these are two of my favorite wrestlers right now, and they blew it. Just gonna say that. All right. So now we get to the bigger segments. Bobby Lashley comes out after his dominant victory over Kofi Kingston at Money in the Bank, and he issues a challenge to anyone in the back. And out comes, thank God he's back, Keith Lee. He came back to a good pop, by the way, and he challenges Bobby Lashley. And it was a great back and forth match between the two. I think this was actually my favorite match of the night, Bobby and Keith. And Bobby gets the win via the spear. And now he cuts like this promo. He and MVP cuts a promo talking about how he was slacking off in the earlier parts of his championship reign, due to like, the women and, just living the good life as a champion. And now he's back to business. So hopefully we get some more intensity from Bobby, And I think it started at Money in the Bank. I just hope that he keeps it up. And after the match, freaking Goldberg makes his return to Monday Night Raw. And he basically just walks out and says, haha, I'm next. Ugh. Now, where do I go with this? Obviously, I see Keith Lee as a future contender. But the thing is, we haven't seen Keith Lee in a few months. So his in-ring work, it was a little shaky. It was some ring rust. He hasn't been in the ring in a while. But on the flip side, it's good that Keith got this match against Bobby, because I really believe that Keith is still seen as like a main event player. So that, just keep that in your back pocket. So there's potential there. Now with Goldberg coming back, I'm not the biggest Goldberg fan, but I cannot deny his legacy and the impact that he's had on the business. With that being said, I'm actually a little amped to see Goldberg versus Bobby, because, I really think that this could be like the proving ground for Bobby Lashley. And I'm also with a lot of people saying that maybe this match shouldn't happen, but at this point, we might as well just take what we can get and just like hope for the best for both competitors, because it's pretty obvious that this match is coming. So let's just, just get with the program, I guess. In a perfect world, I would love to have Keith face Bobby at SummerSlam. But the thing is, being that Keith is back officially full time, and I hope that he stays on Raw and he doesn't get moved to SmackDown. God no. Then there's potential that we can get Bobby versus Keith in the near future. So I'll leave it at that. Alrighty. Oh boy. I think I missed something. Did I? Yeah. The coronation of Charlotte Flair. I thought I talked about that. So Charlotte Flair beat Rhea Ripley at Money in the Bank to win her 11th women's title. And she had like a coronation. She was kind of promo about how Rhea couldn't get the job done. And Rhea comes out and basically challenges her to a rematch. Charlotte was like pretty much turned it down because she hurt Rhea's knee, that night. But to be honest, Charlotte was a little hurt too. So, it kind of didn't really make sense. And then Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce come out and, pretty much makes the match official. And then it was set for the main event on Monday Night Raw. So we go to the main event. And Flair obviously, aims at Rhea's knee, to kind of get the advantage. And it was actually a great match. I feel like there were moments where I was like, oh shit, Rhea is going to win the title back. But, Charlotte takes the title and she tries to leave the ring. And, Rhea falls for the trap. And then Charlotte hits Rhea and then, takes the DQ loss. This flips Rhea out, and then they're going at it at ringside. Then Rhea hits the riptide, and then all of a sudden, almost superhero Nikki A.S.H, formerly known as Nikki Cross, comes out and she runs out and she cashes in her Money in the Bank contract, and she becomes the Raw Women's Champion and winning her first singles title in WWE. Now, there's quite a bit to unpack here. Now, firstly, I had mentioned in my Money in the Bank predictions that I wanted Rhea to retain. And my reasoning behind it was I wanted her to like increase her legitimacy as champion. And to be honest, I really feel like her reign overall was lackluster. Like there could have been a lot more that could have taken place during her title reign. And then in terms of Charlotte winning the title, it's just like she has like the number of title reigns, but I can't really recall where she's had like a lengthy reign as champion. So, and now Charlotte holds the record for the shortest reign in the history of the Raw Women's title. And then you have, the Women's Money in the Bank. I actually read a post on Instagram that pretty much like, resonates with how I feel about the Women's Money in the Bank. The Women's Money in the Bank contract, like holders, they don't really last long. Like the men's where, they hold it for a while and you keep people, like on the edge of their seats and waiting. Like one particular person I think about is Edge. I think back in 2005, and you have people like waiting and anticipating to see when he was going to cash in that contract. You don't get that with the women, and that's like kind of what kind of pulls me away from, seeing a Miss Money in the Bank is because they don't hold the contracts long enough. Like for instance, Carmella when she first won, and then that whole debacle of her, like that whole controversy of James Ellsworth getting the contract, and then they had to run it back again, and then ultimately she wins it again. And Alexa Bliss, when she became Miss Money in the Bank, she held it for only 2 hours before she cashes in on Nia Jackson, Ronda Rousey, and then wins the title. Asuka, she won the Money in the Bank, but the thing that was different with her is that the Raw Women's title was on the inside because Becky Lynch announced her pregnancy. And then now you have Nikki A.S.H cashing in like 24 hours later, to win the title. Like, you get what I'm saying? It's like, there's no like build with like that contract. It's just like okay, you got it. Just cashing in as soon as possible. I want like there to be a build. Like, keep people guessing. Like, that was like what really took it away from me. Like, I have nothing against Nikki, I like Nikki, as a wrestler. Am I a big fan of hers? No. But do I enjoy her work and what she's willing to bring to the table? Yes. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think Nikki should have won Money in the Bank. It should have been either Naomi or Liv Morgan. With the crowd reactions that they be getting, the support those two women been getting, those two should have been the ones to win the title. I mean, the Money in the Bank. But, we have Nikki as a champion now. So hopefully this can open doors for, the other women on the Raw roster to like stake their claim and get a title shot. So I'm going to leave it at that. Overall, I didn't really particularly vibe with that. But, I'm a type to wait things out and see how it goes. And we know that WWE has a big issue with 50-50 booking, repetitive booking. But I can see the tides are beginning to turn when we're having fresh faces holding the title, fresh faces becoming more prominent. So maybe there's some signs of life there, but I need to see for myself. So yeah, I leave it at that. So with these wrestling reviews, this is kind of like a closing. With these wrestling reviews, I want to do them on a weekly basis, but being like an independent contractor, owning my own business, and all the other things I do with my life, it may not always be a weekly thing. It will probably be when I'm called to do it or when I have time. This particular week I have time to do it, so I'm gonna do it. Now, definitely Raw, SmackDown, NXT, maybe even like other like wrestling promotions that I watch. NXT, I don't watch NXT as much. It's still under the WWE banner though. So I may take a look at an episode just to see, what's really going on. Because I know what's going on with NXT because of what I read online, but I haven't physically watched an NXT episode, give or take, since late last year. So it's been some months since I've watched NXT. So I will say never on an NXT review. I'll still do that. But, Raw, SmackDown, definitely, probably because I'm watching them more consistently. And most of my favorite WWE wrestlers are on both those shows. So obviously I keep up with them. But yeah, that's it for now. Thank you all for listening to this review, listening to me rant a little bit, and I'll catch you on the next one. Stay wavy.